Happy Wednesday, everybody. We've got another episode of Humpday Pumpday with your distant neighbor. Welcome, Brian Bogert. How's it going, man?
You know, it is going fantastic. How about yourself, brother?
Doing great. Can you believe we're 6 episodes in, and we have a ton of positive feedback and a ton of listens, and it's really been great, and I can't thank you enough for coming on and kind of giving everyone some motivation midweek while they're driving to work and, you know, getting prepared for the rest of their work week. So thanks again for all that you do.
Hey, man, I think it's a great opportunity. I love being on board here. I think it's pretty fitting. I'll let you kind of do the tee-up, but I think it's fitting that we're 6 weeks in. We are gaining momentum. We are creating momentum, and the whole purpose of this is to be able to give people the momentum and the motivation, the passion, the perspective, and the drive to close out their week strong every week. So it's a really fitting topic for this week, but why don't you tee us up, and then we'll get right into it.
Yeah, well, and so you mentioned momentum, and that's going to be our topic this week, and it's something I'm excited to talk about because it's frankly something I've been thinking about a ton. And so interested to hear kind of your insights and what tips and tricks you have in regards to momentum, because I know it's so crucial to our day-to-day lives and everyone's success. And, you know, obviously I'm in a little bit of a unique situation because I was sick, and we talked about this in the previous episode, is I was sick and out of commission for quite some time. And now that I'm back and healthy and back to work and working on several different things, momentum, you know, and you know, getting that ball rolling again on a number of different fronts has just been something that's, you know, been front of mind for me. You know, it's how do I get myself back to, you know, 100% of what I was doing beforehand, and then also sometimes in a group setting as well as, you know, what does it look like trying to get momentum behind a project or a cause? And so, you know, I guess we'll just start there. And any thoughts you have in regards to momentum, good or bad, love to hear them.
Yeah, so, you know, I think it's interesting. Let's just think about momentum as kind of the basic physics principle. You know, an object in motion tends to stay in motion unless it's met with an equal or greater resisting force. And the same idea, an object at rest tends to stay at rest unless it's met with an equal or greater force. And so momentum is that basic principle. It's no different. It doesn't matter whether it's a physical aspect, whether it's a mental aspect, or just anything in life. Momentum is real. And there's two kinds of momentum. There's positive momentum and there's negative momentum. And then there's the lack of momentum, which I would argue really isn't even momentum. So really, let's just focus on the positive and the negative. And what you just hit on, I think, is really real, is how do we create momentum? Right? If we are at rest, how do we as individuals become that equal or greater force so that we can create momentum and create momentum in a positive light? And, you know, Lao Tzu had a quote that said that the journey of 1,000 miles begins with the very first step. And so creating momentum really starts with action. Creating momentum starts with understanding and taking the first step so that you can really start generating the activity, the motion, the momentum, and the energy behind you to really just drive forward in life. And so momentum, right, for you, Jeff, let's just use you as an example, right? You were out of commission for 4 to 6 weeks. You literally halted, you ceased. You had no momentum on anything. You literally started from ground zero. Your strength was low, your energy was low, your professional life came to a halt, your community life came to a halt, right? And sometimes in life that happens. And so it is what it is. But the hardest part is how do you get yourself back into that? And so what I've seen you do are some of the things that are really most effective is you just jump in and you jump in with both feet. You say, I'm back in action, and I'm going at it full force. And so you've taken that action. You've created that action. But momentum is a beautiful thing, right? So creating it is the hardest part, but you've got to take the first step. You've got to invest the time, the energy, the resources necessary to create it. Once it's created, you've got to double down. You've got to really leverage yourself so that you can take that momentum, and I like the snowball effect that everybody's talked about. When it's rolling down the mountain, gathering more snow, gathering more energy, gathering more mass, how do you actually get that so that it continues and it grows and that momentum and energy grows? challenging part is that other side of momentum that we talked about, is the negative momentum. Negative momentum is real, and negative momentum can suck you down faster than just about any other force in life, right? So, again, we talked about an object in motion tends to stay in motion unless met with an equal or greater resisting force. You have to be the greater or equal resisting force to stop negative momentum. You as an individual. And I'm not talking about you, Jeff. I'm talking about you as the listeners. We as individuals are the only ones who can do this and stop negative momentum. How do we do that? We've got to identify that we have negative momentum. So just like with positive momentum, we've got to take the first action. With negative momentum, we've got to have the self-awareness and the understanding that we are in negative momentum, that we are in a downward force. And we have to understand, identify, and capture with that. Then the secondary piece is just like how we move to positive momentum and create momentum. We've got to take action. So if what's happening in a negative light is not working, change something. Do something different. Take an action to eliminate the drag and the force on that negative momentum so that we can slow it down, bring it to a halt, and then again take more action to create that positive momentum in the right direction. It's really important to understand this because whether it's in business, whether it's in fitness, whether it's in your personal lives, it doesn't matter. Momentum is real. And if we look at any athletic scenario, any sports team, any major event, momentum is real. The team that's on top, the team that's investing, the team that's winning, the team that has the energy, the team that has the momentum is the team that's going to dominate and win. I don't care. Look at any Super Bowl in history, and momentum played a factor in that game. There's a negative momentum for the team that's losing, and there's a positive momentum for the team that's winning. And the team that's winning, if they have the ability to invest all their energy and everything into what they have in a positive momentum, they're going to win the game. If they lose traction and they start slipping back, then they are going to ultimately not have the momentum necessary to move forward. The team with the negative momentum, they've got to find a way to be that equal or greater resisting force, slow it down, stop it, halt it, and move back to positive, or they have no shot of winning. So that same analogy applies to everything in our lives. If we want to be the ones that are winning, we want to be the ones to create the momentum, we want to be the ones doing what we need to do to move forward, that's how we do it. If we want to stop it, we've got to stop it and move forward. Does that make sense, Jeff?
It totally does. And, I think one of the things that I love the snowball analogy because I think one of the things that's tough for people or tough for anyone, right, is because we're so habitual in nature, you're exactly right, is it takes that opposing force to create momentum, especially if you have negative momentum or you don't have the momentum that you like. You know what I mean? It's almost like at first you're pushing that snowball up the hill. You know what I mean? As opposed to letting it roll down. And so it requires, like you said, that action. But it's exactly that. Where from what I found, it takes a conscious effort to go, hey, I realize I was out for a month, and I realize that maybe my energy isn't 100%, but I've got to figure out a way to get this thing rolling. You know what I mean? And I've kind of noticed two things in myself, and I'd like your opinion on them. Is trying to get that momentum going. For me, it's almost like one of two things has to happen. Is I either have to get really excited and put a ton of action behind something. So if I normally make 10 phone calls a day, last week I was like, I've got to make 20 to make up for my momentum. And then the flip side to that is one thing I've also noticed is just doing sometimes small things, adding small things to your routine can add up over time. You know what I mean? And so a big one for me is, like reading, right? And so the importance of reading, and I love reading, but I don't always have the time for it. And so if I go, hey, I'm going to read just 5 pages a day, it doesn't seem significant, but over time it builds up. But then also, I'm much more likely if I've read 5 pages or 10 pages that snowballs into something more. And so do you have any other action items for people in regards to kind of getting their momentum up, or any thoughts on one of those two strategies?
So I 100% agree with everything you just said, and that is the challenge, right? So oftentimes when we have negative momentum or we're stopping from a negative halt, we feel like we've got to give more to get back to where we want to be. And you know what? There might be some truth to that. But I think a really important thing for us to recognize with anything in life, it's about progress, not perfection. And so if we can understand that and harness that and recognize that if we're doing something today that we weren't doing yesterday, if we're creating something in a positive light, even if it's a small action that's 5 pages a day to get us back to the momentum to reading 10, 20, 30 pages a day, whatever the case may be or whatever our target is, if you were doing nothing, to go from nothing to 30 pages a day probably is going to be more difficult. It's going to be very difficult to implement. It's going to be very, very difficult to create momentum. And frankly, you can't have momentum without sustainability. So if you go out and you read nothing today and you read 30 pages tomorrow and you read 30 pages the next day and you say to yourself, oh man, I just don't know how I'm going to continue to do this. It's very difficult to go from nothing to perfection overnight. So to me, it's always about progress, not perfection, because if anything in life, it's asking ourselves the question, what did I learn from today that I can apply to tomorrow? And if you can make marked or small improvements day over day, week over week, month over month, it's progress, not perfection, and you will get back to where you want to be, and that's what momentum is about. Just like what you said, though, right? If you're pushing the snowball up the hill, the hardest part is stopping it from pushing you back down, getting it to be equal, and then the hardest part is the first couple of steps of getting it to roll until you can really get some energy and some strength behind it. So it's no different in this, right? So if you're doing nothing, and you go to 2 pages a day, 3 pages a day, 4 pages a day, 5 pages a day, and let's just say you added 1 page a day over day, for a period of time, that's what it's about. And you guys have heard me talk about this in the past, or any of you who've kind of followed, I'm a big believer in the compounding effect in life. So this is no different. Momentum is all about creating a compounding effect in life. And so progress, not perfection, and it's understanding and giving yourself the ability to recognize that. Giving yourself not an out, not an excuse, not a thought process that says, oh, well, I can't do 30, so I failed, but saying if I can do something versus nothing, I've succeeded. And giving yourself the ability to celebrate that on a day-over-day basis, because it's as much about creating the mental momentum and the success and the mental ability to move forward with success as it is about the actual action. Because momentum is just as much about the action as it is about the mindset and the thought process and the effect that all of that has on your life. So I think it's really important that you ask that question, Jeff, because that's a critical piece that I left out of my original dialogue, and it's really just that. It's progress, not perfection.
Yeah, amazing insights. And you know, the other example I continue to think about is someone who makes a New Year's resolution that they're going to work out every day, right? And they try and go from never working out to working out every single day, and it's just you're right. It's about taking that action and starting it, and kind of muscling up, but it doesn't have to be perfect, right? It's not. You don't have to reach your end goal or your end, schedule or your end, reading goal right away. And so that's great stuff. So as always, Brian, I appreciate the insights, and I appreciate you taking some time for Humpday Pumpday and coming and inspiring us for the rest of our week.
Hey, man, I love doing it. I think this is a really cool opportunity. We've been getting such great feedback, and like I said in the beginning of the call, momentum, frankly, with what we're creating here, and it's pretty incredible. We as Humpday Pumpday had a little bit of a stall and a negative momentum just because of the stuff going on in your personal life, and now we're going 3 weeks strong. We've got a lot of energy behind this. We're taking those actions, and again, we as individuals are focused on the progress, not on the perfection, and that's something that I hope all of our listeners grab onto. So thank you. You are demonstrating the need for even small action creating momentum, and the fact that small action turns into medium action, which turns into large action, which turns into massive 10x action. And when that happens, right, it starts with something small. So I love being a part of this project. I hope our listeners do too. And Jeff, thank you, because you're creating the momentum behind this.
Hey, I appreciate everything that you do, and we wouldn't be here without you. So for everyone out there, again, we appreciate you tuning in. Humpday Pumpday is the episode. We'll kind of bring you some fire for the rest of your week, and we release these episodes every Wednesday morning on the Your Distant Neighbor podcast. If you want to reach out to Brian, you can. He's on Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, at Bogert Brian. And then you can always reach out to me as well at Jeffrey Buettner. And then, Brian, what's your website again? Just brianbogert.com, is that correct?
It's just brianbogert.com.
Excellent. Well, thanks as always for taking a little time out of your coaching schedule to stop in and say hello and get everyone fired up. Have a great week, man.
Thank you. You too, brother.